In front of me is one of Valencia's most famous landmarks, Torres de Sereno, and it's one of only 3 gates left into the old walled city. From about the 1300s to about the 1800s there was 12 gates, but they demolished 9 of them to build a bypass, and this is very beautiful. Now the bridge leading to this gate is over what used to be the River Turia. Now, as you can see, it's just a huge park. Now in 1957 there was a massive flood, and loads of people's houses got flooded, people died and everything, so they decided to reroute the river, and it's become a massive park. There's skateboard tracks in it, there's picnic areas, there's places where you can just lie down, benches. It's actually probably a lot better now than it was when it had water in it. It's very popular, people go in, and it goes from 8 kilometres one end to the other, and it goes right to the sea, and it's very beautiful to have that in the middle of the city. But anyway, we're not going to be talking about that today, or in fact we're going to be talking about the gate. What we're going to be talking about is one of, well, Spain's famous desserts, peaches and cream. But in Spain it's called pajamas, and this is down to a fascinating character called Jorge Martinez, who lived in Valencia in 1477 to 1526. I'm going to tell you about the tale of Jorge Martinez, peaches and cream, and why it's called pajamas. In the 1400s, all these buildings in the distance weren't there. In fact, they were all peach trees. Jorge Martinez was born inside the city walls of Valencia in 1422 and probably lived on a street like this. He was a normal person really, but he was very hard working and was known to be an expert. This is a typical Valencian street, and this is the gate which Jorge would have been outside back in 1437. Now this is the inner city walls now. It's obviously changed since the times of Jorge, but the basic street plan will be very similar. Now let me tell you a bit about Jorge. Many of the men in the town back in the 15th century earned their money by picking peaches, because outside the city walls it was peach fields, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of peach trees. And Jorge was well known in the city for being one of the fastest peach pickers, because you got paid for how many peaches you picked, and that's where the word peach work comes from. So he was very good at it. And one day I was working on the fields, and it was, I don't know, he was sweating, it was a very hot day, and once he was focused there was no stopping him. He just, you know, he wanted his basket filled and that was it. But he noticed the sun was changing. He checked the sundial and it was 10 to 9, and he thought, oh no, I've got to get back. And the reason was, back in the 15th century there was 12 gates and they all closed at 9 o'clock at night. So if you were out of the gates you couldn't get back in. So he ran as fast as he could with his heavy baskets of peaches, and he got to the gates and it was like 9:25. So some of the gates had like moats around them with like crocodiles in, piranha fish, and all he could do was shout. And some of the gates he could knock at, but they would pour stuff on him, and he wouldn't let him in. They said, no, you know, security were under instructions, you can't get in after 9 o'clock. It's tough. And you might think, oh well, he probably just go sleep under a peach tree somewhere, but it wasn't very safe outside the city walls at 9 o'clock, after 9 o'clock. That's why they closed the gates. There was Vikings around who was also a lot of wild animals that the Romans had brought over with them that they'd escaped, like zebras, tigers, lions, and they'd been breeding, and they were out there, so there was a good chance you could get attacked. And then there was like antisocial people like muggers and stuff who'd been banished from the city, who were hanging about. So not a pleasant place to be after 9 o'clock. So Jorge thought, well, you know, I've got to, what can I do? So he walked away from the gates, and he was walking around for about 2 hours, and he was getting worried. And he saw this cottage in the distance, and he thought, well, I'm going to try that. So he walked up this hill, and he knocked on the door, and this lady appeared, and she said, what do you want? He said, well, my name's Jorge Martinez, and I was picking peaches, and I didn't realise what time it was, and I'm locked out of the city gates. Can you put me somewhere safe for the night? And she said, well, you're not coming in here, but there's a barn there with a couple of pigs in it, there's some hay, you can stay in there if you want, but you've got to be gone at 7 o'clock in the morning. And he said, look, that's really kind, and thanks for your trouble, I really appreciate it. So Jorge went in the barn, and he made himself a nice little bed. He elevated it a little bit from the pigs, so there was plenty of hay. So he was just about to get comfortable and have a bit of a sleep when the lady appeared, and she said, look, here's a pair of pyjamas for you. There's a lot of insects in here at night, and I don't want you to get bitten. These were my husband's, but he got kidnapped by Turkish pirates, and I haven't seen him for about 15 years, so he won't be needing them. So he said, oh, fantastic, thank you very much. So he took the pyjamas off her, and she said, look, I'd give you something to eat, but all I've got is a flan and some fresh cream. And Jorge says, well, look, I've got a basket full of peaches here. Why don't you get a couple of plates and we can make some out of that? And she says, all right then. So she went and got some plates, and she came back, and Jorge had sliced some peaches, and he put them in the plate, and she poured the cream on top, and and put the flan on. And by this time Jorge had put his pyjamas on. So they were eating this delicious meal, and they were very satisfied at the end. And he said good night to the lady, and she said good night. And the following morning, 7 o'clock, he folded the pyjamas up and went back to the city. So word soon got round about Jorge, because people were worried about him. His wife was worried about him not coming back. So word got round that he was home, and he told this fascinating story about what happened. So before long, it was the whole gossip around Valencia about Jorge's story. So he was summoned to meet the local mayor, Sebastian. He took him in, he said, what happened? And he told him the story. He said, right, from now on, we're going to call peaches and cream pyjamas. And he said, fair enough, yeah, well, yeah, that's all right. So from that day onwards, peaches and cream in Spain are called pyjamas. You know, a little flan on top as well. Some people put cherries on it. So if you're ever in Spain and you think, you go to a shop and say, can I have a pair of pyjamas? They'll give you a pair of pyjamas. But if you just go into a cafe and say pyjamas, they'll bring you peaches and cream with maybe a flan on top and a cherry. Yeah, lots of people eating here. I mean, if I went in there now and asked for pyjamas, which is slightly different in Spanish, it's called pijamas. They'd know exactly what I meant, and they'd probably know all about Jorge Martinez and his fascinating story. Yeah. Convento there, you see, that's probably where nuns lived back in 1400s. It's now a bar. Yes. Yeah, it's a bit of a speciality though, pyjamas, so it won't be on the menu. They don't like putting stuff like that on menus. They just like putting tapas. You've got to request it maybe. Some books there. Adolf Hitler. Principles of Feminism. Hotel California, Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, or Thomas the Tank Engine stories, written in Spanish. It's a nice vending machine. Yeah, this is a statue now of Jorge Martinez, and lots of like writers and artists, they like to come here for inspiration. Yeah, but he's carrying his basket of peaches there. And it's got there's a head on it because that symbolises peach is like a head, you see, and it symbolises that even in an accident, a human is like a peach. And you've got to be very careful, and that's what that's the message that they're saying there. Be careful, because humans are like peaches, they're very delicate. Just over there there's a solicitor's office, but if you notice it's called Jorge, and a lot of people were named after Jorge Martinez. He's very, very famous. Nearly as famous as Messi. He's a Messi of the day, basically. Right, we're just approaching one of the other gates now. Torres de Corte. Very, very amazing structure. Look at all cannonballs, holes that open cannonballs and musket fire. But Jorge would have come to this door like the other one, knocking to get in, and somebody would have opened a little hatch and said no, clear off. In fact, he might not have even got here because there'd have been water out there with crocodiles in, so he might have had to shout, and they've just said no, dull one mate, you should have been back here at 9 o'clock. So people eating. Jorge was outside, and this little thing here, you can see it's like a little, they've got some boiling oil and they poured it at him and told him to clear off till, you know, come back tomorrow. Walking down one of the stairways to the gates. This is where Jorge would have been, probably hanging around shouting, saying let me in, but the guards didn't have it because they were under instructions nobody comes in after 9 o'clock.